A little while ago I did an unboxing and full build series on a BMW M3. That kit was made by KitBox and PZY model, and recently they've come out with a new kit, and that is the Porsche 911 GT3, and this is the 992.1 version of it. Now this is the combo version, meaning that it comes with the standard GT3 RS and also the optional Weissach package, and that just means a couple of extra carbon fiber bits and some different wheels, and in the real car some other things, but most importantly on the kit, that's pretty much it. So let's have a look at the box, the general contents, and then go over them in a bit more detail further on in the video. Let's start off with the chassis itself. Now usually with these resin kits, that is the biggest letdown of all. There's no detail whatsoever, it's just a flat plain piece. And on the M3 they did before, the chassis was pretty bare and nothing really was on it. Now in this case they have changed it and they have added full detail to the chassis, at least from the underside, with one big panel, just to make it a lot cheaper on production cost and not have a lot of parts, but still have something nice to look at. As far as suspension components and parts to hang the wheels upon, there is not really that much to show for. There's the disc brakes, and on the back a small block that just glues in place, and you can add a screw and then slide the wheel in. On top of that you can of course add the calipers and some photo etch pieces, which I will show later for the detail on the disc and also the center section right there. Now the chassis isn't really all that special, specifically when it comes to the suspension, but no problem there, as it will be hidden in the wheel wells anyway. All of the parts that are visible, like the calipers, have received a lot of detailed design work and are all really crisply cast and show exactly what it needs to do in order to get a nice and convincing looking piece. Like I've mentioned before, for the wheels you have two options. I believe this is the Weissach version and this is the stock version. I really prefer this stock version, even though the Weissach ones look really cool, but to me it's a bit too busy for this car's design, which is already pretty busy, and this can tone it down a little bit. Let me know down in the comments which one you would prefer, the standard version or the Weissach version. Now, of course, there are two sets of wheels included, but the tires are the same for both sets, and they are extremely well detailed. You can see all of the nice tire writing in the sidewall to the smallest detail, even the tire sizing and the specific tire that is on here. Also, the tread pattern is really nice. On the back it does have no detail at all, and a little bit of a mold sprue attachment right there, and a small mold line around it, but with a tiny bit of sanding, maybe even some cutting there right there, that should easily be fixed. But the main part that is visible, like the tread and also the sidewall, this is incredibly nicely done, and I haven't really seen any of these companies do this before, so that is a really good thing, as these tires are pretty important to these cars, and this is an incredible detail. In the center section of the wheels you see that there is something missing, and that of course is the center locking nut. Now there's 4 here, and there's 2 spare ones I believe in the bags as well. You can paint these up and just pop them in place to make it a lot easier and crisper of a detail to do. Moving on up from the chassis, and that is the interior. The main interior floor pan is one big piece. The rear seats, or the lack thereof, are just molded in, but these are supposed to be the same color as the carpet anyway, so not a big deal. Same for the rear parcel shelf, and of course these small pieces right here. A little bit of carpeting can be added right here, and I believe this can be done in Alcantara, or it is Alcantara standard out of the factory, and this is just some black plastic, but the rest just builds upon top of this one. And for that we have a whole bunch of super detailed parts. First of all, the dashboard. It has all of the nice vents, small buttons, more vents, and even the small gauge on top of it for your track and lap timing, and some more parts on top. Super crisp details around all of the panel lines, which makes it easier if you want to paint it in multiple parts, add some carbon fiber, or maybe even some other details. And then there's of course the steering wheel as well. This center piece is a separate part from the outer steering wheel itself that can just be snapped and glued in place, which makes it easier to paint this in a different color, or maybe even in Alcantara textured paint, and have this be painted in the black or silver or whatever you want to paint it in. Just makes it easier and a nicer, sharper transition between the two parts and different materials. Just like the dashboard, the center console is also incredibly well done. Again, sharp details around all of the panel lines and sharp detailing on all of the important main features of the part itself. There are some parts missing here, but those are all cast separately to make it easier to paint them in different colors, and again to have that super sharp transition between the different materials. From the center console, we're going to the door panels, or at least the door panel and the rear panel behind the rear seats, or next to the rear panel behind this door panel. It is missing the speaker here, but that again is a separate piece to paint it in a different color, different texture, a lot easier. And again, just like all of the other parts on the door panels, super sharp detailing, panel lining, everything nice and deep, and they don't need any touching up whatsoever. For the seats, we of course have the carbon fiber fixed rear bucket seats. Again, super sharp detailing. The rear part of the seat back is in there, the lower part is not. I'm not really sure why they did it, as it is a separate piece. Fits in there nicely, no adjustments, just gluing it in place. This one will make it a lot easier to paint it in a different color, but this one will not, as you would need to mask it off. Kinda would have liked to see this separate as well to make it just as easy as this lower part, but no idea what the reasoning behind it is. All of the other details, nice, crisp, clean, and sharp with super deep panel lines again, and then the rear is nice and smooth for some carbon fiber decals to go on top of. Now, of course, with this being a RS version of the GT3, it has a roll cage as well as standard, I believe. And this one is included in the kit. It is made out of two parts just to make it easier to cast and assemble as well, and also for painting, of course. Now, like I've said, there's multiple pieces missing in those main bigger parts that I've shown before, and those are all cast separately to make it easier and even more detailed and cleaner to be built. Now, of course, there are some panels for in the doors, some various gauges, cup holders, even pedals for all round, the gear shifter, etc. And from the interior, we're going to go over to the exterior. Now, the front and rear splitter bumper parts are molded separate, as I believe these can just be painted in a black, as they are black plastic or carbon fiber, but I don't believe that is even an option from Porsche, but I could be wrong. Let me know down in the comments below if I am for sure. These again, nice and crisp parts, a lot of details in here, super sharp casting as well with these thin edges right here, and no separation lines, but just a clean fitted part. Same for the rear, incredibly detailed and sharp casting again. These small fins here on the rear diffuser, the parts for the exhaust, and some more side pieces for the aero as well. Speaking of aero, there is a rear wing included in this one too. It is really complicated. It has the wing uprights, the side blades, and of course the two main parts for the spoiler itself. That is the main big part, and then the smaller one on top. As you can see, the risers themselves are incredibly detailed, super sharp casting, and they should just easily fit onto the main parts themselves without much hassle whatsoever. And the same goes for the rest of the assembly. Now, it is a lot of parts for a rear wing. This is just one side. Of course, there's other sides as well, but it does make it a lot easier for painting and handling. Just takes a little bit more time for assembly. So similar to the approach they took on the interior with a lot of main pieces and then additional separate pieces for the details, they've done the same thing for the exterior. The side skirt is the same as the front and rear splitters, a separate part to be painted, a lot easier, and also to make it a lot better for detailing, as you have multiple more angles that don't have to be fitted into one big piece and one big complicated mold. Other parts like the headlights, some vents all over the rear view mirrors, super sharp casting, nice and crisp lines on all of the panel lines, which makes it a lot easier for me so I don't have to scribe them out. I believe all of them are of similar quality and don't need any scribing whatsoever, and can just be sanded and moved on to the paint booth. Same of course for the headlights, a lot of detail in those buckets. Some vents for on the side and the front, and all over the place, probably on the hood, and the two front fenders has some nice fins in it and detail all around. For the clear parts, it's a combination of some clear plastic sheet painted on with all of the black edging already to make it easier. As I've said before, a lot of these resin kits have these kinds of windows, and I'm not the biggest fan, as it's a flat piece that needs to be glued onto a contoured shape, mostly not even bending in one way but multiple different directions, and making it a lot harder to glue it in place. Now, these side windows usually aren't that big of a deal, it's mostly the front and rear ones. I'm curious to see how easily these fit. They do bend quite easily as they're not too thick, and the detailing on them is nice and sharp, but again, we'll see how they fit. For the other parts, they have decided to go for a casting, and that is a lot easier for these parts as they are pretty much impossible to do with those flat plastic pieces anyway. On the rear one, they have the Porsche scripts molded in there already, so just a bit of paint and they're ready to go. The taillights are made out of multiple pieces, just like on the rear one, and there's some other parts for some of the indicators and reflectors all around, and probably some head and taillight pieces too. And of course the main ones for the front. It is not really crisp all around. This one is nice, but this one does have some imperfections to be seen. I'm not sure if all of them do, but these ones do, so they do need a little bit of attention, probably some sanding, maybe some polishing and some clear coat, and they'll be fixed. But that's just a bit of a letdown, as these should be quality checked, and in my book these will not go through the quality control. So besides a whole bunch of photo-etched sheets and other additional detail pieces, I've seen a lot more kits come out with some plated parts. These are some chrome plated inserts for the headlights, I believe, and these are some black chrome pieces for the exhaust tips. Gives a nice dimension to the kit for some details that otherwise would be a lot harder to replicate, and it's cool to see them included more and more in these kinds of kits, specifically in the quality that they deliver. It is really, really nice and smooth. For the interior, they have also included some seatbelt material. Now, since you can choose for a couple of different color options for the decals with the stripes and the lettering and all the stuff right there, they've added some matching ones for the seatbelts in red, green, blue, and black. Some screws to attach the inner interior tub to the main body, and same for the chassis, and also some additional valve stems, I believe, for the wheels to go even in deeper amounts of detail. So like I've said, with these resin kits, it's pretty customary to have a lot of photo-etched sheets. They do include these metal plates. Not a really big fan of them, as I know what car it is and I don't store it in a display box. But otherwise, it's a really nice detail for people that do store them in display boxes to have a nice custom plate there as well. For details around the headlights, taillights, all other stuff like the window wipers, some small photo-etched sheets are included too. Even some textured pieces for inside some of the reflectors, and other stuff all around. And like I've said with the disc brakes, some photo etch pieces for the main discs and the details on the inside. And then there's various other pieces for all around on the interior, the shifter pedals, some license plates, even some extra metal plates for on the pedals themselves, and some more stuff for the seat belts and even the wipers. And then finally, for a lot of the exterior components and even more interior components, some window trim, more parts for the wipers, some meshes and grills for all around on the interior and exterior, and even some of the logos too, and a nice grill or mesh grill for the front bumper. It is of course great to have a lot of those photo etch pieces, but that's not all as far as detailing goes, and luckily they have included a lot of decals for this one too. So there's two small decal sheets with some metal transfer decals for the headlights with a lot of incredible nice and shiny detail in there, and also for some of the mirrors. The Porsche logos, badges for all around are also in that same metal finish, which is really cool, gives another extra level of detail to these kits for more realism. And then we have the two main big decal sheets. Now of course these are covered in protective film, but without that you can clearly see the incredible amount of detail they've gone to. With this one there is a lot of pre-cut carbon fiber. That makes it a lot easier for the roof, the hood, I believe for the mirrors, a lot of the spoiler parts, and even for the seat backs as well. Some parts for the center console, additional small details for different versions of this car, different colored versions as well. And of course this one for, I believe, the rear spoiler in a blue, black, red, and green, same as the seat belts that I've shown before. Even a special version of this kit with the 777 and then the yellow surrounds for the headlights and various RS badges all over. And even more bits for on the interior, nicely on the trim, the center console, the steering wheel, and I believe for in the headrests on the seats too. And of course, if that wasn't enough, which it isn't in this case, then there's more on this one. You have the stripes for the exterior. This one is the green version that goes from front to back, and then the other versions just go on the door itself and don't have these extended pieces. Some more parts for on the interior for the inlays on the center of the seats. Different RS badges all over, a couple of different gauge colors as well to match with these different versions or that special version. Some more parts for the interior even, and then also for the stitching on the seats. Now I have seen this done before. It is a bit of a pain in the ass to apply, but if it's applied well and it looks good in the end, then you're really happy you've done it, as it's a super nice detail to see on these kits that goes above and beyond. Now there are some metal decals for the Porsche logos already included, but I believe that on the RS it's not actually a badge, it's a sticker, and that's not made out of metal, so I believe these are correct, and the other ones are nice to have, but not the correct version for this car. And then it's finally time to move on to the main piece of this unboxing, which most of you are probably looking forward to, and that is the body itself. Now, as I've said, most of it is molded in one piece, apart from all of the additional detailed parts that don't need to be painted in body color. So the front louvers for the fenders are missing, same for the hood, the small plastic insert for the side air inlets, the side skirts, the rear bumper portion with most of the aero and all of the other stuff underneath, some parts for the grills right here, the main big spoiler, additional pieces on top, etc. Again, like all of the other pieces, as far as panel lines go, nice and deep, and I'm pretty sure they don't need any touching up whatsoever. I haven't seen it all that much on these resin kits so far that they don't need any work, so it's really nice to see that they took extra care and attention on these to make it a lot crisper, and also don't give that much room for mistakes, so to speak. Now, of course, if you're going for a different version of this kit and gonna make it the Weissach version, there is a carbon fiber decal for the hood, also the roof, and some various other bits all around that I've just shown. But the main piece of an RS, of course, is the color scheme. Now, I haven't really decided what I wanted to go for. I've seen one built in yellow by the guys from PZY Models themselves, and I really loved the way that looked. But since they've already done it, I don't think I should do it as well. I should go for something different. I don't really want to go for the white with red or white with green, but maybe something else. If you have any suggestions, I'm really not sure yet what I'm going to go for. Do leave it in the comments down below. Everything is appreciated. Maybe a nice bright orange with some black accents, or even a red, or just a full stealth with a full black, or just keep it simple and go silver. Let me know what you guys want to see. And again, as always, if you're interested in purchasing one of these kits, I will be leaving links in the description down below to the PZY Model and KitBox Facebook page. Just contact them and they will help you out in order to sort you one of these kits. And if you have any other interest as well, I will be leaving a link to my web shop and the Patreon page for the channel to help support out the channel, or to support the web shop, which is thescalemodelingchannel.com. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing your suggestions on what I should do with this kit.